apparently a complete mess. Kat reminded me after I started that we agreed that we would not be recording while the students are on. So that's all that. So it is March. It's just after 7. We have officially started. Goodness. I am definitely anticipating stuff for myself slowing down a wee bit now. That's wonderful. And today is not planned in detail. There's a couple things I want to kind of throw out that we should discuss. I'd like to talk a bit more about, yeah, Kat just got off a plane a little bit ago. There's stuff I'd like to discuss in regards to building ourselves forward as the PTO, how we want to approach that. I have some challenges I've been facing trying to deal with stuff around that. I would also like to talk about potentially moving this meeting time, which of course I have now lost the Google form. I need to pull that back out. So that's kind of the beginning logistics piece. I'm sorry, I'm Marco Cabrera. I think you all know me. If you guys don't mind, let's go through and introduce ourselves. Marco Cabrera, I'm on the board. I'm co-lead of the SSC. I have a student in both schools, math in the high school, Alex in the middle school. Thank you, Kat. All right, Stephanie, would you mind?
Hi, I am Stephanie Slonick. I have a 6th grade student. We're currently on an extended absence while my husband's working on a project overseas. So I am Zooming in from tomorrow.
All right.
I'm Kat Eldred. I have an 8th grader at the middle school and 9th grader at the high school. And I have totally been enjoying your shenanigan photos, Stephanie, just so you know, on Facebook.
Sarah, you're next.
Sarah Piat, and I work at the middle school.
Right.
Rosalie Collier, and I have a 9th grader, one of the Everetts at the high school. And Kat and I know each other from way back.
Well, welcome. I don't know that I've seen you here before. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad everyone's here.
It was a few times ago, probably.
Yeah, it's good to see you. All right, Sarah, I'm going to let you jump in with your report while I try and figure out how to log into the correct account for this form.
You know, I just have like a story kind of supporting one of the projects that Emily's doing in math, and that's just a reminder of sometimes these projects really grab a student and they become more of an academic student than maybe they have in the past. And that's happened recently with an 8th grade student who's always struggled in math, and he is loving ski resorts and all of this research, and has really started to understand algebra and slopes and equations, so that now he is teaching his peers. So just one of those moments like, yes, this is why we do it. You know, in terms of business, we have a new format for our conferences coming up in April. So read your emails about that. I think Robert explained it pretty well in yesterday's email about how students will be coming in with parents, meeting in their advisory. Their advisory teacher is kind of there overseeing, watching the process. Or if you want to meet with a specific teacher, you come the next evening. So there's that. We are also looking forward to planning some spring field trips per grade. I kind of imagine that that will be a pretty solid opportunity for the Student Support Council to get involved. We haven't really taken any great fun field trips in a couple of years. So students and staff, especially staff, we're getting quite excited because we are in the early planning stages. But starting Friday, each grade will be meeting, they'll be brainstorming. The 8th graders will have quite a bit less boundaries. So it will not be an overnight trip, but it will be a trip that will probably start before and after the school day ends. It will probably a trip that will require busing. It'll definitely cost more than the other trips, and then they'll go down. So 6th graders, their trip will be within the school day. 7th graders will be in the region, but maybe it will be extended. But again, this is going to be really driven by students with us just providing guardrails. But I would imagine that there will be some fundraising, or there will be opportunities to support families that can't afford the trips. And I'm not imagining anything grandiose, but like, you know, I already had a student say, can we go to Michigan Adventure for the day as an 8th grader? And I would think that trips like that or Mackinac Island would be on the table. So, you know, it's never ideal to throw an expense at the end of the school year, but we really, really want this for kids. So tapping into resources will probably be helpful.
That's awesome.
And I think that's all I have. You know, projects are wrapping up, so we've got some exciting projects in the works for Q4, but I'm going to wait. We're kind of refining that right now.
Okay. Any questions for Sarah?
I'm excited to see what they come up with.
Me too. Click a button here, and I'm going to zoom back over here. I succeeded in getting into the form. Thank you very much, Sarah. I appreciate all that you do. Make it so I am such a mess. I apologize. Okay. I suppose we could talk about, let's talk about the time of this meeting first. In theory, now that I have it open, that should be a reasonably simple thing. We have, the way I built this form, it's actually kind of difficult for me to see this. I guess I should get an overall feeling from you guys about the idea of changing the time of this meeting. Did any of you have the opportunity to fill out this form?
I think I filled it out. Is the motivation for thinking about changing based on why? What are you thinking about? Tell me more.
I had a couple of different people who have been attending somewhat frequently identify that this date and time they have something perfectly overlapping that they have to attend otherwise. So there are a couple members of this team that could come more frequently, and they would like to if it were at a different date and time. We had in selecting this time, we did try a year or two ago to see if there were any other times that would work. And this is just where we kind of landed. I don't think it was a first pick. I think it was just where we landed. So I'm totally game changing times if that works for people. So that's where it came from. I thought I'd put a poll out there to see if we had any strong opinions one way or another. I'd love to include people if they can be included.
No, I get it. And I wondered too about where it was thrown out, but also considering that since we're asking staff members to communicate, if they shouldn't be maybe have a weighted vote or something.
Yes, that is something I absolutely want to talk about, particularly now that Sarah and Erica are the only 2 staff members appearing. I want to make sure to not destroy your guys' time. I very much so appreciate that you guys continue to show up. I know that this is something, you know, one more thing extra outside of your normal hours. So I guess I could start there, Sarah. Do you feel like, is there a date and time in a month that might work better for you?
You know, not really. What are we in March, April, May? So are there only 2 more or 3 more meetings?
Only 2 more.
Only 2 more. So not really. I can be somewhat flexible, I would say. I did fill it out, although I can't recall. I mean, ideally during the school day, but even that can be tricky and people work. And so, yeah, for 2 more months, I'm sure I can adapt.
Okay, that helps.
I mean, that's a good point, though, is that we want to go into the next school year with a set different day and time. And now would be the good time to maybe look at that. So, because we have 2 more meetings this school year, but never, you know, I know particularly a couple of the parents that had said, hey, this time was hard, or ones that are in the middle school and are just into the middle school. At least that's what I had experienced. So thinking about what might work next fall, or is it just a planning ahead thing? Because I clearly I could not do your job. So you know a lot better what is able to be planned ahead, Sarah.
In terms of next fall, yeah, I just can't even speak to that right now.
Yeah, I am hoping that taking a moment to acknowledge the insanity that has been going on, just how much you guys have to do. I'm hoping you have some really good off time this summer. I prefer that sooner, but reality. So, okay. And I think this conversation also, we absolutely can be planning this for next fall. With only 2 more meetings, it might not be worth the hassle and confusing people now. And that's fine with me. It's important to me that we just finally have a discussion about it that people are involved in. Looking at the responses, actually, let me share my screen if you don't mind. Okay, there we go. I'm always a little hesitant sharing my screen because in Discord, one flaw with it is that if you share your screen and Discord is up, it creates that infinite loop of recording your screen. It's awesome. All right. So the way my goal was to break this up was I put forward a almost random list of dates. I had Rose find some of them and I had a couple other dates thrown in there. People pick first, second, third best options, and then at the bottom, pick a day, pick a time. Consistently 7 p.m. seems to be good for people. Here we have a tie between the first Monday of the month and the first Sunday of the month. And I think one thing that's nice to have you guys see this is ideally, what I would have done before this meeting is go through and look at this data and kind of plan out how things work, how we can be inclusive of the most people. But that didn't happen. So I guess what I'd like to look at here is identify this information. Perhaps what would be best, and I welcome input, perhaps would be best I could take a screenshot or print a PDF of these options. This does not have to be answered right now, and then I can have everyone take a moment to look at it when they feel ready. Does that seem like an appropriate way forward, or?
Sure. And you know what, Marco, is something that I've been thinking a lot about with a different evening meeting that I'm a part of, is that sometimes there is a demographic of family that just can't it's not going to work for everybody. And so I know that the 2 or all 3, right? The other 6th grade families have littler children at home too. And I know that a couple of other 6th grade families have talked about evenings are just tricky. And sometimes that's just the breaks, that when you're trying to do bath and bed and dinner, that's the way that it shakes itself out. I can't remember what else I was going to say. Oh, right. That junior high, I think that also for 6th grade families that we're used to an elementary PTA, PTO, SSC kind of thing where it's a vibrant, really active community. And I think that things just sort of drop off at the junior high and high school level anyway. And so that is just something to consider, that it might not be the time or day that's precluding people from, it might just be apathy, to be honest. That's a terrible way to say it, but you know what I mean.
It's not untrue. All right. Kat, what do you think?
I have a flexible enough schedule that I can usually be here. So it does not, I think it's hard to ask people to do Sunday night, honestly. Like that was the one that I would totally do it. But if I am ever traveling over the weekend, I'm usually getting home like right when we'll be meeting. So like that's a thing. And also for our staff, asking them to give up part of their weekend, I don't think is really realistic, because that is the time that they get for themselves. And there's enough time during the week that they're trying to do planning and things. So I feel like, my gut says that we shouldn't take that time away from our staff.
I like
You
that.
also, as kind of a newcomer, this is only my 2nd meeting, but I would say go with your leadership you know, the folks who are consistently here, what works best for them. Because those are the folks who are really already committed and should be given priority for the time of it, you know, and then hopefully other people like myself or other, you know, family folk can join as they get more into the swing of it.
That comment is very, very helpful.
I showed up today to be a part of the time difference change because I have really wanted to be a part of this group very much so the whole year, but I have a 7 o'clock meeting on Mondays that I can't miss. I had to dip out just to be here to tell you how important it was that I wanted to be here and be a part of this, but I can't miss that obligation every Monday at 7 o'clock. So, I mean, if it works, it works. If not, you know, I understand, but I really want to be one of your people in this group and participate and be a part of. So I wanted to make sure that I showed up to let you guys know that because that's important to me.
Thank you.
That is
very
such
much.
good.
Go ahead.
That is such good information. Sorry, can I, so what do you think, Michelle, like do you feel like, let's say it's always Monday at 7, is there a different way that the information could be communicated to you to be able to participate in a different way? Or do you feel like the meeting itself is something that feels really important to you that you want to be a part of also?
Yeah, actually participating in the meeting and becoming a part of, you know, this meeting too, because Greenspire is really important to us and to my kids, but I also want to be able to connect and be a part of, you know, and be able to participate and be there too. When I was told at the very beginning that this was a thing, I was super excited because I want to be one of those parents that like helps and has the information and is a part of this group of parents that are, you know, creating and being. So yeah, being a part of the actual group was, you know, is kind of important to me.
I guess I have a question, Marco. I know that you mentioned that you pulled out kind of some random days and times, but when I looked at it, it was pretty much just Monday and Sunday as options for alternate times. And I mean, that doesn't really feel like it addresses the Monday night issue with several people who want to be involved. I mean, at least I didn't see other options on the drop down. Did I just miss the boat on
You
that?
probably no. So I'd like to start out. I've mentioned a couple times I'm a bit of a mess. Over the past month, my schedule has gotten down to like nothing. So this was very not well thought out when I put it together, and I would be very happy to make it a little more expansive if that is helpful for us.
I'd be interested in something like that, because I think that if there are times for those that are interested and wanting to become a part of it, that also work for those of us that are currently able to participate, if we can find some middle ground there, I think that we have less. I think that there is some situation of apathy going into middle school and high school, but I don't think that that is the rule. I think that might actually be the exception, especially with Greenspire. And so I think that I would love to have coffee and like we can throw more dates or whatever, or put out another form. But I guess I just think that there are more parents that want to be a part of it still.
I'm good with that. And Kat, if you don't mind putting together something, I would love to do another coffee with the SSC. At the moment, I actually am incredibly flexible for time to make that happen. Awesome. So overall, what I'm hearing is I will put this information out there, but I'm also going to make it a little more expansive and reattempt this form, thinking about next fall and how we can be as inclusive as possible. And then we'll push forward with there, keeping our mind open to dates and times that can happen. Michelle, I just wanted to verify, are you in our Facebook group or on our SendGrid mailing list, our MailChimp mailing list? Okay, cool. I just want to make sure you have access to the information.
Yep, I think I'm signed up for all of that.
Okay, great. So we'll make sure to post information when we're going to have, you know, coffee with the SSC, or maybe a work session where it might be cool just to pop in and say hi and see what's going on. But thank you for coming here for that bit. Is there anything else that we need to discuss on the time All right, I feel like we're pretty good then. I will stop sharing my screen. Okay, then I think we can transition into the PTO aspect. I know, well, we're all kind of in different places here. Where we stand so far, to the best of my knowledge, I'm hoping Deborah's able to sign on at some point. We have the paperwork set up to start our PTO. Phase one, I think, is the like, 20 some dollars or whatever for the actual state piece. And then we're going to have to start talking about the upwards of $400 in the federal system to get the tax aspect taken care of. That is upcoming. But on the other fronts, we've been working on the bylaws. I need to update the bylaws. Rose might have already done so. She and I had a conversation to make sure that dues are removed as one of the bylaws that we want to have in there. And the main reason for that is we want to make sure that this group is as inclusive as possible. We want to make sure that a monetary limit is not a threshold people have to cross to be here. But the rest of the bylaws all look pretty solid. There is, of course, a ton of things that we can do to make it more specific to us. And part of that is I like using the acronym of PTO because it's very clear to people. Everyone knows what that is. But I would like to talk about how we can monkey with that acronym so that PTO stands for something that's more inclusive for us. That remains very important to me. Does anyone else have information on where we stand that I have not spoken to? I know we have a couple other kind of subcommittees that have been working in different aspects. I think Stephanie, you're on mission maybe?
Right, I think it's all set, ready to go. It's, we talked about throwing it out to the larger community to take a look at, and that can happen whenever, if we want to do it all at once, when the bylaws are figured out. And when are you thinking we're going to talk about, do we have to have officers for this to move forward? And when do you want to do that? Because I bet that that's a really good thing for Michelle to know about, and to, so Michelle, for people that aren't coming to meetings, where is the best way to read this kind of information? Like if you want, if someone wants to be the secretary of the PTO or something like that, what do you think? What's your feedback? It's really valuable. I'm so glad that you skipped out to share the stuff with us.
I don't know. I do email well. Email would be good. I mean, that's probably the best for me, is to be able to keep updated as much as possible. That's what I've been doing.
Okay. Actually, the process for officers is something I was going to get to next, right? Like soon. So that's awesome. So we've got our bylaws moving, we've got our mission moving, we have the paperwork moving. I think the things that we need to decide are, one, the officers. And that is a process that we have to go through the nomination process. We have to have a vote and we have to approve them in so that we can, solidify all the pieces of us being a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The other aspect is, in accordance with our mission and our bylaws, we need to be able to work with the district to figure out how that connection is going to happen. What is our role? How are we clear that any fundraising we might want to do does not conflict with fundraising that might occur for the general foundation or other things? We've spoken before. I'm kind of repeating this for some of the people who were not on the meetings at that time, but some of the things we've spoken out in regards to fundraising, our priorities really are about what can we do within the schools to ease tension for staff and students. Can we fund, coffee? We've got some great donation things going on, which I don't want to forget to touch on before we leave. Trying to keep the schools supplied with things. It would be really lovely if we had a fund available through our own raising of funds to just buy a list of wish list items for the school. It would also be really nice to support staff during Teacher Appreciation Week, a random Taco Tuesday, we decided to deliver tacos kind of thing. It's really important to me that those things are funded, and I don't think our general foundation will ever get there. So I think it's important that we understand what, if anything, we are specifically working towards in the fundraising department, how that fits what we're doing, and how that can work with the district. So those are kind of huge generalized pieces, but things that we really have to have somewhat of an idea for. It might actually be worth having a separate work session just to discuss those ideas. But I absolutely welcome input from anybody on them, because I want to make sure this works and this works for everyone involved. Does anyone have any kind of opinions or ideas on which direction well, I know which direction we want to go, but if anyone has any specific ideas, I guess I welcome hearing them. Then I will move into the idea of the nominating for PTO stuff. The way we have to do this, we do have some flexibility. It doesn't have to be uber rigid, but the idea is we have to have a nomination for the different positions. I don't remember if it's 3 or 5 positions. I read it at some point, but there are 3 or 5 positions that need to be nominated. The nominee must accept, and then there has to be a vote for them in. And I don't remember if there has to be a second officially. For the moment, I'm going to assume the more complicated option. There has to be a nomination, a second, and then an acceptance. And the idea was maybe in our next meeting, we can attempt to go through that process to see if we can nominate our board before our final meeting of the year so that things can keep moving forward.
Does everybody have to be present? Like in a situation today, if I wanted to nominate Deb, can she be nominated? Not that today we're doing that, but or does everybody have to be on the screen in order to be nominated?
I don't think so.
I don't think the nominations have to be in person, but I think that the voting does.
That's correct. So we could have the nominations, we can have the acceptance. A lot of this can happen offline, but we want to make sure that the nominees are presented and voted for in a recorded fashion. We're kind of in this interesting gray area until we have the official business set up. We technically don't have to follow the rules of Open Meetings Act or anything like that. But it's a gray area, and I would much rather do more and never have it questioned. Go ahead,
Are
Rosalie.
you planning on doing bylaws first and then officers, or the other way around?
Bylaws are almost complete, so bylaws first.
Okay. And then your bylaws kind of tell you how your officers are brought in. So that needs to be really specific in there. I'm in the land of 4-H. We have lots of bylaws and lots of meetings and official councils and things like that. So this is all very familiar sounding to me.
I'm actually going to want to talk to you about the line of 4-H at some point, but that's a later thing.
Okay.
I was going to say, if you have time available that you're willing to give, we would love to have someone who knows what they're talking about look at our bylaws with us.
Well, a little bit.
More than I do.
I have
I'm
enough
curious.
information to be dangerous, and that's where we
I'm
got
curious
so far.
about your sources for that and how you're writing that. And when I hear about nominating people, I always get a little eeks, because I always think, everyone here is a volunteer in some manner. Even staff are volunteering their time at night. And so you probably want people to apply to be officers and then voted on in that sense by the body. So they're actually expressing their great interest in doing this and why they're more capable than somebody else, unless you just want to.
Totally, 100%. No, these are 2 people who are super active and just aren't here tonight. And so I was feeling like I would feel bad for them to miss out on being the secretary of the PTO just because they had a hockey game tonight or something like that. That's no, I would blindside somebody. Hey, Rosalie, guess what? You're the new secretary.
Right.
I know
you don't want to do it that way. I'm just saying that they want to probably put their name in the hat, formally. And that's a nice little simple process. It doesn't need to be insane. Actually, the less insane, the better. But that way it's really formalized, and they've actually put a date on when they have applied for this position, essentially, and then people vote them in. And you could have an annual meeting that you have every year for all that lovely voting and bylaw changing. because bylaws aren't going to stay the same. They'll
Correct.
change with the needs of the school changing and everything, but
I like that
Um,
quite a bit. That does feel significantly more sane.
or something like that.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Would you be up for me sending you a message and harassing you a little bit about bylaws?
Yeah, that would be fine.
Okay, excellent. I'm going to send you my information in the chat because I don't know how to contact anybody. So there we go. Cool. So I would like to set up a work session to solidify some of this information where we can look at it as a team. I'm going to prompt Rose with this information specifically about the bylaws and how we can possibly harass Rosalie and get more information and just work towards getting our process solid. I would love to have that information solidified in our next meeting if possible. I don't think that's a far stretch, but I feel like we could have a lot more information solid next meeting, so that last meeting of the year, we can really iron out how we're going to move forward with those things in place. So awesome. Thank you all. Is there anything else that anyone would like to bring up on the idea of the PTO or back to the time thing? Go ahead, Michelle.
I have a question. So have these officers or positions been discussed prior? Like, do all of you know and understand what these positions are that we're applying or being nominated for? Because they haven't been there, so.
Yeah, it has not been a big discussion. We're basically going down the rules of the 501(c), what we need to sign up. So I believe those are a president, a vice president, a secretary, a finance person, and after that, I promise I'm making anything up that I come to.
My understanding, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. You're good.
My understanding of the PTO positions would be the secretary would keep track of minutes for the meetings, and the financial person would come up with a budget for the year with a projected budget or anything that rolled over into the new year. And then that would be approved at the meeting by the people attending moving forward. So we would have specific budget items that we would want to earmark for, okay, we want to fundraise for XYZ. It'll cost us this much to fundraise, whatever. President is going to oversee the meetings, and I'm totally blanking on, other than if the president needs to step down for something, what the vice president is doing with the PTO.
I was confused whether it was 3 or 5. Those 3, I think, are absolute. There might be 2 more, but I know it's an odd number.
I think those are the necessary to function ones. Yes.
Cool. Yes, Rosalie.
So another really good thing to think about anytime you're dealing with 501(c)(3s and finances is to have a second financial person. So having a treasurer, whatever you call it, in our 4-H world, we call them treasurers, and then having a deputy treasurer. So somebody who also then has a second pair of eyes on the books for whatever those are. If you're using QuickBooks, if you're just, reconciling financial accounts every month, but having those people in place to kind of do a great checks and balances. And then, yeah, vice president, you're basically just major backup for the president. President creates the agenda for the meetings as well. Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, and I
I'm kind of familiar with all these terms, except for the meeting I'm actually stepping out of, we use chair and co-chair rather than president and vice president, and basically one just fills in for the other one if they're not there.
That's actually what Marco and I have done. We've just, because that was the easiest to call us for the SSC stuff, because, well, sometimes it was just us, but yeah. And I don't know if there's a rule for having to use those terms.
I think terms is not dictated anywhere.
Excellent. We can dictate our own terms.
I'm familiar with these different kinds of positions and the things that I do too. So that's kind of cool.
Excellent. All right. Anything else on this front? Thank you all very much. Bridget, were you able to connect in? I got different texts saying you could and could not. Are you here?
Hi, Marco.
Hi.
Sorry.
I have made
Yes.
it. Okay,
Yes.
I just want to check it. I wanted to check in with both middle school and high school on the donation fronts and what do we have? Are the wish lists kept up to date? And then I thought I should actually verify you're here before I ask that question.
Yes. I did not do the one for March. There's not a lot of people signing up for it, to be honest. And Erica did confirm last month that they were plenty stocked, so I didn't update for March. But as far as I know, I haven't heard. I've been keeping, in contact with Tori, and she has not let me know that of anything new that they are in need of. So yeah.
Well, even for not getting to March, I still really appreciate how much effort you're putting into it, because it's really good to hear that, like, oh, we don't actually need anything right now. That says that this has been working. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Stephanie, last I knew you were in the country and you were somewhat doing the middle school wish list. Are you still on that, or did you hand that off?
So I do the staff and student pantry, and then add a link to the wish list that I think Tori updates, or Jill, maybe, I'm not sure who updates it. Most recently, it had been updated last time I looked at it, and there were a bunch of new things on there. So I don't know, Sarah, I know that Melissa just did a huge drop last Monday through the Sign Up Genius. I don't know where they are. I usually check in with Sarah mid-month, so that would be now, to see if there's something that I can help subsidize or shout out to some of the people who aren't super active on Sign Up Genius but are happy to pick up meat sticks when they're at Costco. So it's mid-month. Sarah, do you need anything? What can I do to?
We are in great shape. We have plenty of everything to get us through to spring break, which is just, a week from Thursday. So we're in good shape. Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thanks, Sarah. And is the staff wish list something that you guys are getting all your markers and whiteboards and that kind of stuff that you need? Or is there a different way you'd like that managed than just being on the Sign Up Genius? I think that, though, Robert did send it out in a group, in a school-wide shout out a couple of weeks ago. Am I remembering that correctly?
I'm 100% ignorant as to how all of our needs get taken care of, but we're feeling pretty great right now.
That's awesome. Wonderful. That's great news.
I kind of love that that's happening and that you're not having to manage it. That makes me so happy. Like that second piece, I think, is like almost more important.
Maybe that's the goal for the rest of the year, to hear me say I'm ignorant of things. Is that what you want?
Only when it pertains to you having to manage it.
Okay.
When it's not your actual job.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I could hear you saying you're ignorant on something in your job too, and that would just be, a relief in my heart. Is there anything else that anyone would like to bring up in this meeting? I have one thing that came to the back of my mind, but I want to make sure I'm not just talking the whole time.
I have one thing. I think this was mentioned in a meeting a few months ago. So we have 2 or 3 parents that have shown interest in volunteering during our electives next quarter. And I think the cost is, Greenspire eats a small cost, but I think the cost for the fingerprinting is $70. And at one point, I recall that someone said, oh, there's money in the SSC that could help cover that. Is that true or not? Because I would love to be able to sort of throw that out there for them. Is like, well, it's really mostly time consuming, quite frankly, but I wouldn't want the money thing to sway them away. If
there is currently no funds for that. We collected money and we did gift baskets around Christmas and for a couple of things. I would be really happy to contribute some money where I can, though, if there is a person or 2 that would like to go through that process.
Okay.
I think that's what you're remembering, Sarah. I remember this coming up and Marco and like someone saying, this is an SSC thing that we could do a shout out and start fundraising for.
Okay.
The other thing I wondered about, like the different levels of background checks that you need, because the United Way has a volunteer platform, and they vet the folks through something called iChat. I think, is that what it's called? I don't really understand.
Yep, that's
Um,
it.
But it's like it's one level, it's not a fingerprinting level. It's mostly like they search your driver's license number and your address maybe, or something like that. But if that is a level of volunteer background, the United Way pays for it. Like there would
Okay.
be no cost from the, but I don't know how thorough that background check is.
Okay.
That's something I
I'll
can look in.
ask.
We
And I
need
know
a
that this
tier
is something
3.
that Deb, oops, sorry,
I was just saying we need a tier 3, which involves fingerprinting.
got it. Okay, so that won't help. I
Yeah.
know that this is a note from Deb, who was hoping to be here tonight, that she just really wants to talk about recruiting volunteers and figuring out the vetting, and to have a platform where we could have a go-to. And I'm quoting, I thought it could be helpful to discuss before just sending Robert a proposed blurb that he would then send out about volunteers. So maybe we don't have time to really talk about it today, but it does sound like volunteers, that's a really good topic to spend some time on and separately.
Yes. And another thing that you heard that I think is very important, of the ideas for fundraising that we have, that is one of them that we talked about. It would be really wonderful to have a few $100s in a fund so that if we have an opportunity to volunteer, that is something we can just cover. So that is absolutely an interest I have. And I think someone else brought it up, so it's not just my idea.
That could be, it's kind of a sponsorship or a scholarship fund that you have within your 501. And you fundraise specifically for it. And then maybe even these incoming potential volunteers could then apply for some of those funds and really show that they're actually going to go through and stick with it and that kind of thing. But it's a great way to give back. That's awesome. One real quick question I have for you, and I know this is only the second time again, I keep saying that, but are you recording the meetings so that you can do minutes from them? I know that some people are uncomfortable with having their, being on video, being recorded, because they're not sure where all this is going. And like if they have kids in the background, suddenly then it becomes kind of a youth safety privacy situation. So I guess that's one of my questions. In 4-H land, we don't actually record meetings, we record webinars, because none of the participants other than the speakers are recorded or have their visual pictures up there. I just wondered where is all this going?
That's a really wonderful question, because that does also get into internet safety and child safety. We started recording these meetings when we went to pandemic and it all became virtual, and I wanted to make sure we were as inclusive as possible. So when we record these meetings, we actually have a private YouTube channel that we link to our SSC website. So these videos are available if you go to our site and you can click through them. They are technically publicly available. We don't really have formalized minutes. It's something we will have to do eventually, but we basically take any agenda that's been written and fill in conversations that were had. And I think that's something to consider that I had not considered yet. How do we want to approach that going forward with our meetings? What is recorded? What is not safe for us to record? We did speak last month. It is very recent that we have a student on to give us information. And one of the clear decisions that we made is that we do not record while the student is on. That was where I messed up in the beginning. I started recording before Dylan spoke, and then I had to stop again because we're not using that. So does that answer your question?
Partially. The last meeting I was on, there were kids in the background in some of the videos. So then, it's just a safety piece. I don't think that anything bad, of course, is going to happen because of it, but I also just wondered. And I know some people, again, are really uncomfortable, just having themselves on a recording that goes out to anyone being able to access it. So that's all.
Yeah, no, I think that's a conversation that's absolutely worth having. One of the things I try to do at least once a year is have a conversation about internet safety. I'm actually thinking about writing something up that's way more concise than when I'm actually talking about it to put out there. That would also include information on the Sex Education Advisory Board to make sure that we all have the same information going forward. So that's what I got. I'm going to put this out there. I will attempt to actually do it before the next meeting. I will try to get some of this information solidified so that we can actually really start having those conversations. Or if anyone else who's more organized than I am wants to jot it down, that'd be cool. But I like the idea of having this as a conversation point that we have to make sure that we are really accommodating if someone does not feel safe with their face on camera and such. All right, cool. If there's nothing else, I can give you 5 minutes back. Does anyone have anything else?
I have one more question, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's just on a topic that was something else, but how do I find out what the criteria is for volunteering? And like, if you do the fingerprints for a background check, what has to or not has to be on that background check in order to be accepted? Like, how do I find that stuff out?
I can respond a little bit to that. Maybe Marco, you know more. If you go to our website, there is under Toolbox. I was just there today. I don't exactly know where, but it's definitely under Toolbox, some sort of resource. And it says you want to volunteer, click here. I would start with that. Jill runs all the volunteering items, so she would be a good resource to ask the specifics. But you mentioned something, Marco, about the tier 3, which maybe you can say more about than I could.
I would definitely say that you or Jill have more information than I do. My awareness of the T3 is because in going through the bylaws that we pulled forward, it talks very specifically about the type of that tier 3 as a thing and what it entails. I don't know the why or the how yet. I simply remember reading that information. So yeah, I know almost nothing.
But in terms, Michelle, in terms of, you know, who would volunteer? I mean, we have a lot of events in which parents come on campus and for a few hours, you know, they help chaperone. And that's not something that we have had parents go through all those motions, because there's a ton of staff around. It's, you know, it's more of a community event in which their presence is there, like on Friday, you know, keeping the campfire safe and whatnot. It's more of when there's going to be an extended period of time, you know, running an elective every week for 45 minutes, that sort of thing, where again, a staff member is still paired, but it's really like you're kind of running the class. We feel like that's just that should be a standard protocol.
Okay. Thank you. That helps.
Yeah. And running the electives is really fun. I've only done one, but it was awesome. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. If there are any questions beyond this, feel free to reach out on Facebook or email us, whatever you need. And I'd be really happy to connect. So have a great week. Thank you.